Okay, here's how you do exercise 4L, number 1. Remember that on your formula sheet, you're always going to have this available, which is the formula for the axis of symmetry, x equals negative b over 2a. So this is a good hint if you forget what you're doing, but you don't have to have this as long as you have your calculator. So let's start with number 1. We're going to find the equation of the axis of symmetry. We're going to find the coordinates of the point at which the curve intersects the x-axis, or the x-intersects, and C is the coordinates of the vertex. So let's look at A. A is, you could just take that formula from the formula sheet, substitute in negative 2, substitute in 1, because this is 1x squared, even though it doesn't look like there's an A there. A is not 0, A is 1. If A was 0, this thing would disappear. So negative b over 2a would be negative of negative 2 divided by 2 times 1. So that's just the same as 1, because that would negative of negative 2 is positive 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so the formula for the equation of the axis of symmetry would be x equals 1. You can't just put 1, you have to say x equals 1. That's the graph, or the equation for the line. The other way you could do it is you could use your calculator, and if you put the equation in here, x squared minus 2x plus 3, I put it in here for y1, and I graph it, it looks like that. And remember that you can use trace. If you use trace, you can position the cursor about where the axis of symmetry would cross. It would be about there, right? So that's about x equals 1 and y equals 2, although it is not exact. You don't know if that's exact or not. Usually in math studies, you can assume that it's the closest whole number. But let's say you want to be more exact. What you could do is you could find the minimum point of this parabola, because the minimum point is also the place where the axis of symmetry would cross. And so you would use second calc for that. You would go to minimum, and you would say, okay, I'm going to go a little bit to the left of the minimum point and mark that. I'm going to go a little bit to the right of the minimum point and mark that. And then it says, do you want to guess that number? Sure. And it tells me that the minimum point is x equals 0.9999 and y equals 2. So it gives me the coordinates of the vertex. And since it uses an approximation method, it doesn't exactly get you to 1.0. It gets really close. But so actually 0.999, and since this is a math studies problem, you can kind of assume that that's going to be 1. So you could put 1, comma 2 for the vertex. And that's actually what they asked in part C. So we already had the answer for part C. But for B, they just say, where does the, or for A, they ask what is the equation for axis of symmetry. The x-coordinate of the vertex is also the, basically it's the whole equation for the axis of symmetry. So you just put the x-coordinate there, x equals 1. That's part A. Okay? So by using the calculator, we already have A and C. And we also actually have B, because B says, where does the parabola cross the x-axis? And you can already see from the graph that it doesn't, so you just put none. Let's see. And then if you want to do part C using the equation, you can also. Since you know that x equals 1 at the axis of symmetry, to find the y at the axis of symmetry, which would be the y-coordinate of the vertex, you just put 1 into this equation. So it would be y equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 3. And that would just be the same thing as 1 minus 2 plus 3, which is equal to 2. So we just got the y-coordinate, and so we know that the vertex is 1 comma 2, just like we got from the calculator. I'm just going to show you one other way that you can find where this function crosses the x-axis. And the way you're going to do that is, if you want to find out where this crosses the x-axis, this is actually the same thing as finding when this y is going to be 0, right? Because like when you're on the x-axis, that means y is 0. So, like, what x's do you put in here to make y equal to 0? Well, there's a tool on your calculator inside your apps, which you remember polysmlt, which we used at the end of last year. If you open up apps and go into polysmlt and choose poly root finder here, we've already used simultaneous equation solver last year, but now we're going to use poly root finder, which is number 1. And then we're going to say the order of the equation is 2 because the highest exponent is 2. And then we need to push next here. We use these buttons. And then we just put in the coefficients or the numbers that are multiplied in front of these variables. So for the first one, it's going to be whatever's multiplied times x squared, which it looks like there's nothing there, but there's a 1 there, so we put a 1. Okay, it's not a 0. What's multiplied times the x is negative 2, so we put negative 2. And what's multiplied times the constant term is 3, so we put 3. And then we press solve. And it says no real roots found. Well, roots are the same thing as x-intersects, so, or x-axis intersects. So it's saying that this parabola never crosses the x-axis, which is what they were asking in B. So if it had found intersections, it would give them to us here, but since it didn't, it just said that there's no real roots.